Hey everybody, welcome back to House of Bricks Live. I just looked at my hair. I think I was standing in the wind on the way in, just kidding. But glad everyone's joining us again today. We've had some amazing guests over the last couple months, doing some amazing things for veterans, raising awareness for mental health and suicide prevention. And as you know, veterans are a core pillar of the House of Bricks. They serve our country, and we not only say thank you for your service, but we say thank you with action. And today's guest, you're going to love today's episode. So just even reading these notes, I got excited. But today we're going to be joined by Rob Greene, who's a combat veteran, truth seeker, and the founder of Unfiltered Wisdom. So he had a situation where the VA told him it would take about 6 to 8 months just to see a mental health specialist, and Rob knew he had a choice. He could either wait for help or take radical action and ownership of his healing. What followed was a global pilgrimage to the raw edges of wisdom, living in the jungles of the Philippines, training under a master in China, and meditating in the mountains of India and Tibet. So he's not a guru, okay? He's not here to sell you some self-help fluff. If he was, he wouldn't be on the House of Bricks, because we don't believe in fluff. We believe in action. We believe in building brick by brick and turning obstacles into stepping stones. So Rob is someone that went to the edge, and he came back with real tools for healing. And I tell people this all the time, and I'm even going through some of this myself. You cannot waste those valley experiences. It's the most difficult time, but it's where you learn the most about yourself, and then you gather resources to climb that next mountain. And Rob did it actually. He went to Tibet. He's climbing mountains in India. So Rob, I want to welcome you to the House of Bricks Live.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. And as I was reading these notes, I get excited about every guest, and every podcast host says this to every guest, but I was fired up and am fired up to hear about this story. So take us back to this moment that really changed everything. You were spiraling out of control on a week-long drug binge, and something snapped. What happened that night?
Yeah, I just knew that this wasn't it. Like, we all come to these moments sometimes in life where we really have to make a choice. Because sometimes we like to lie to ourselves and say it's not that bad. Sometimes we think we're going to do it later. But this was one of those moments where, like, I don't want to live this way anymore. I can't do this. I really need to get help. I was destroying my relationship. My career was falling apart. Everything was really it was going in a downward spiral to the point where I had to just make a choice. And I remember I was sitting at home in a puddle full of blood after a suicide attempt. And after that, I was like, all right, I need help. I can't deny this anymore. I can't put this off. I can't say I'm going to do it later. So that's when I decided to go seek help with the VA. And that whole kind of situation played out in a way I didn't really expect. I went and I told them, okay, I'm having some really bad problems. I need help. They said, all right, come back in 2 weeks for an evaluation. Got an evaluation, waited another month and a half. They said, okay, well, you have severe PTSD and you need help. I was like, well, yeah, obviously. They said, well, you have to wait 6 to 8 months for appointment with a mental health specialist. And that was a point where it's like, I knew I had to do something, because I can't just sit around for 6 to 8 months. I probably wouldn't have made it, because I really didn't want to live anymore. Like, I didn't really see a point in life anymore. I didn't want to be here. I didn't have any motivation for anything else. So that's when I did some soul searching, and I decided to take radical action.
Yeah, and I want to get into that. But what was kind of the main catalyst to get you to that point? And before you got to that point, were there opportunities for you to get help along the way, and you just decided not to do it? I'm speaking from experience. I'm the last person to ask for help. But what kind of drove you to that point? Were there some obviously there were some warning signs along the way?
I think a lot of veterans, we like to live in denial, especially when we have a problem, and especially if seeking help for that problem is going to make us look bad, like we're not capable of handling it on our own. And for years, I was living in denial. And a lot of things that I considered normal, other people would say, hey, man, I don't think this is a good idea. Why you like this? And for me, it was just a normal thing. Like if you get angry or upset at something, you drink yourself to your blackout drunk. Or, if someone gets you upset or you have a conflict, you escalate to the point of almost a fist fight. Like I was just really unhinged in a way where everything that I was doing was normal to me. I was a product of my environment, being a Navy corpsman, hanging around the Marines, had this really alpha male kind of attitude. And I think a lot of the things that built up to it was my denial system starting to fall apart. Because there was a certain point where I can hold everything together, right? I was working a job, then my boss wanted me to start another venture within the company. So I'm working 15, 18 hours a day, then to burn stress off of drinking and doing other stuff. And slowly but surely, little things started to fall apart. Like I've had insomnia for about 20 years. And so for me, sleeping 1 to 2 hours a night was a normal thing. And it came to a point where I wasn't sleeping at all. And it came to a point where I started to get twitches in my eye. And I was constantly had raccoon eyes because I was super tired all the time. And then it got to a point where I was like, all right, well, I'll just have a few drinks. It'll be okay. And that turned into once a week to twice a week to every day. And then that turned into going into other directions with other stuff. And then just little things. It was like accumulation of things that progressively led up to a point where I just really knew that there was something wrong that I didn't know how to deal with. And everything that I was using to deal with that wasn't working anymore. And it was escalating in the opposite direction. Because I was trying to put out a fire by dumping gasoline on it without really knowing it. Because the gasoline was in a water bottle. I'm throwing it on the fire and it's getting bigger. I'm like, why isn't this working? So I'm going to keep throwing gasoline on this thing. And it was just getting worse because all of my coping mechanisms I was used to and were normal to me weren't working the way that I thought they would. So it was coming out of the military. I mean, PTSD was definitely a thing. I didn't even know what that was. And I didn't even want to look in that direction because I'd have to admit that something was wrong with me. And so, insomnia, having mood swings all the time, having flashbacks, waking up at night with my heart rate spiked and sweats, having nightmares. All of these things were just happening. And I just thought I could handle it, and that got to a point where it didn't work. It couldn't handle it.
And if you don't mind me asking, like, what do you now looking back see as the root issue that you were trying to cope with these other, devices, so to speak? What were you trying to cover up?
I think it's just, as American males, we don't have an openness with our emotions. We don't talk about how we feel. And being conditioned that way as a child and then going into the military where, you just got to suck it up and take it and do it. Having a lot of negative emotions that I didn't know what to do with. It was kind of just like a pressure tank that was slowly building up until it was all the way on the red. And then all of the things I knew to try to make these emotions go away were just sweeping dirt under a rug till it was a giant mountain leaking out of the sides. And so I think a lot of the times with PTSD, with these kind of things people go through, it's our inability to understand our emotions and express them in a healthy way to ourselves. On top of the fact that in the military, you're psychologically conditioned to disassociate with your emotions. So not to admit that you have a problem, not to feel, emotions are weakness, suck it up, death before dishonor. All these whole things are conditioned to us so deeply that I was even afraid to be vulnerable with my own self, right? Like, talking about my feelings and the things that were happening was a terrifying thought. I would rather charge a hail of gunfire than do that. That's the kind of place I was in. So I think that's the root cause of it. And I think this is kind of standard across the board to a lot of veterans. We have a lot of feelings. We have a lot of emotions we don't know what to do with. And then our conditioning keeps them in a place where we don't really know how to express them. Or if we do, they come out in extremes, like when we're intoxicated and we do just insane, crazy things. So it's this unhealthy balance between having the emotion and trying to find a way to deal with it. A lot of us are clueless on how to do that.
You're talking to one of them right here, and that's how I've survived entrepreneurship for 30 years. And I don't want to diminish what it really means to, be in the service and in military, but I do parallel entrepreneurship
Yeah.
to a battlefield. I mean, you have to be
Yeah.
blindly stubborn, very resilient, and silence those emotions. So I used to say to my wife, feelings aren't facts. So don't ever say that. I learned the hard way one time, but feelings aren't
Yeah.
facts. You can't be controlled by your feelings, but there is that healthy moment of just recognizing, like, this is happening to you,
Yeah.
and it's okay. And I think something you said earlier, being able to admit to yourself that there's an issue is probably the toughest thing for all of us. Like if I'm talking to you, like, hey, yeah, we struggle
Yeah.
together, but sitting in your room alone at night, being able to say, like, I've got a freaking problem and I need help is really tough for a lot of guys to do. And I think there's a healthy balance. I think men have kind of shifted almost too far. I don't want to say to the left, but to the left.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just say it, too far to the left. They're too soft, right? And so
Yeah.
they have to, come back to the middle, or on the other side, more right than left, because you got to lead yourself, you got to lead your family, you got to provide. You can't just sing Kumbaya all the time and focus on your feelings. So as we get into today a little bit more, I want to tell you, I'm not an emotional guy either, and I was just talking about left to right, but I mean, I almost shed a tear. Like you started telling the story, like, hey man, I need mental help. Like, sure, take a number, come back in 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Like that's mind blowing to me. It's not like you needed shoulder surgery or something, like, and they should, I would hope, understand, like if a veteran is coming in for help, like they're already at that pretty damn close to, a dangerous situation. So what was kind of going through your mind when that was the response?
I understand resource allocation and supply and demand, and there's a massive amount of veterans that have the same problem that I have, right? And so across the board, if the organization doesn't have the resources to accommodate the people, then there's going to be a wait. I mean, that's just how you're an entrepreneur, you know how these kind of things work. So part of me wasn't surprised because I understand that, like, the 22 a day thing, right? We're losing 22 veterans a day to self-deletion. So I understand there's a massive demand for it. And if an organization doesn't have the resources to provide that, then your only choice is to wait or do something else. So I wouldn't say that I was totally surprised by it, but I just knew, like, all right, well, if that's the case, I got to do something else. I mean, I'm not going to sit here for 8 months because I'm not going to make it. Right. So I wouldn't really necessarily fault the VA and want to point the barrel at them, because I know they're an organization that manages thousands and millions of veterans and all that. But when they have a huge load of people that need help, they haven't actually allocated the right resources to deal with the problem, then that's something that definitely needs to be addressed and has been addressed since the time it happened. This was back in 2015 for me. So different administrations, different things have happened since then. And I'd like to think it's gotten better since the time I tried to reach out to them and all that.
It hasn't. I think it's still, they spend $500 million, but, they've got a $400 billion budget. But I appreciate your respect to the VA. I mean, it really is supply and demand. You can only do so much with what you're given. And that's why with the House of Bricks, we're not a government organization, right? Mm-hmm. But we want to recognize those that have served us, and not just in saying thank you, but also creating opportunity. So if you've got a job or you have relationships, that can solve a lot of your, mental challenges and the depression and anxiety, like just being able to provide for your family and succeed. So we're trying to provide, or are providing, tools like our Startup X course, right? You want to start your own business. I created a course that teaches you how to get your first 100 customers, how to go to market, like just some sort of track. And what I've noticed, and just in talking to several veterans, and even as being an entrepreneur and a leader, is it's okay to be independent, but you don't have to be alone. And that is something, I don't know if I said it or heard it. No one makes up anything anymore. Everyone just regurgitates. So I probably, whoever said that, I'll just give them credit, but we adopt it as our own. But it's something that really resonated with me because I have people all around me, right? But I'm also in the big office, and it's kind of like, hey, you can't be real to your employees. Okay, I'm a father of 4. I can't go home and tell my kids like, hey, we're going to lose everything we have. Like, so where do you turn when you're in those circumstances? And so with our House of Bricks community, we're connecting not just veterans, but veterans to business leaders, venture capitalists, investment bankers, CEOs, and really just trying to be that tribe and connection and voice of encouragement and direction. And by no means do we claim to have any solutions, right, for mental health or any coaching or training on that, but, plugging a financial need or just being a community can really help people that are in that situation. For anyone out there that's listening right now, Rob, and they may not be at the point you were, but they're kind of on that downward slope, like what's one piece of advice you would give them?
All the magic happens at rock bottom. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, right? But
no, I'm taking that line too. So
it does, because whenever you get to a point where you're really faced with this choice where you got to make an extreme decision, it's kind of a life or death thing. And when you're faced in that situation, you're going to perform 9 times out of 10. You're going to perform or you're going to take a way out. And a lot of people sadly do take a way out. But if you're at a point where you're really driving yourself to the bottom, it's a point where everything that you are ignoring is coming back to knock on your door and say hello. And you can't run away anymore because all those feelings they're pumping it at full volume. So you got to do something with them. So if you're faced in a situation where everything you're trying is not working, all of the ways you used to cope with things are not working anymore, nothing's working out, it's forcing you to change directions. I know sometimes the only way that you find the light is from a place of darkness, because that's where it shines the brightest, right? So if you can embrace those moments and know that this is your avenue to change and take extreme, aggressive, relentless action, then you can come out on top. But you have to get to those points to really shed your old identities and understand that this is a place where you have to change and you don't have a choice.
It's always darkest before the dawn, right? That's what they say. Yeah. And it's easier said than done. All the magic happens at rock bottom, but it is so true. Like I've been to those places in life, and that's why I say that about the valley. I mean, I've got boxes and boxes of journals that I'm just writing down. And what you see when you're journaling is 80 to 90% of what you're worried about never even happens.
Yeah, it doesn't even happen.
Because I look back at them and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go bankrupt. And nothing happens. So I encourage people, again, everyone's got their morning routine. That's the secret sauce. But just being able to reflect, getting it out of your head and on paper, you can actually kind of see how crazy your thoughts are too. It's like, dude, I'm really not in a good place. The stuff I'm writing about and thinking about. But you did something a lot of people want to do, but either don't have the resources or the courage. But you just decided to go all in and leave everything behind and go to places like India, China, the Philippines. What drove you to do that? Well, we've already talked about it, but how did you actually make that decision?
I remember I came back from a relief project. It was in 2013, and I was in the Philippines because I've been working internationally for a Japanese company at the time. And after the typhoon hit in 2013, I was doing a relief project where I was digging bodies out of the rubble and helping out medically, some hospital corpsmen, right? Something I've always had this drive to kind of go back into the field. I loved it in the military. That was where I felt the most alive. And after that, I lost my father to suicide. And so when that happened, that really drove me into a super dark place, right? And trying to escape those feelings for 2 years after that, it never really worked. And everything started falling apart around that, because your emotions are the primary drivers of your action, right? If you feel the feeling of hunger, your thought is going to be dominated on how to get food. It's a simple idea. So if you have negative emotions, even though you try to overpower them, your baseline action is going to come to trying to relieve that emotion in the best way that you know how. And if you don't know how to do that in a healthy way, it's going to lead you into a darker place. And that's exactly what's happening to me. And so I remember I got called into my office. It was like, 2015, early 2015. My boss said I was going to get promoted to the VP of International Operations. And he said, oh, wait, never mind. We're going to promote someone else. So we're just going to actually give you a desk outside next to this guy that we hired a few months ago because we want him better because he's Asian and you're not. And then going home that night, my ex-fiance was also, we're having a lot of problems in our relationship due to my own actions and inability to manage my emotions. So everything was falling apart. So I just kind of figured if it's all falling apart anyway, then you know what? Let it fall all the way apart. I'm done. I'm out of here. I want to do something that makes me feel alive again. And going through this whole thing with the VA and having to wait, it just came to a point where I remember I was sitting in my office at my house and I was reading through the internet on how to find alternative ways to treat PTSD. And I came across a study that was done by the University of Indiana where they put I think it was 60 or 120 veterans through a regimen of yoga classes, and they reported different kind of things. They said, they reported better sleep and better relationships and all these kind of benefits. And so that's what got me really curious. And since everything else was falling apart, I just figured, I'm just going to go full wild man, full commando. And I decided to go pack my stuff up. Me and a group of my friends, we decided to move to the jungles of the Philippines. And we wanted to live off the land. We wanted to unplug from the system. We wanted to unplug from the idea of constantly chasing this validation in a world that sees you as replaceable. And doing that, it really brought me back to nature. It brought me back to an element where I felt really at peace with myself, where things weren't as complicated. And so I guess to make a long story short, the idea that really drove me to do everything that I did in phases was everything was falling apart that I knew, everything that I was so attached to and I invested so much time and energy in and I had all these hopes and dreams for, it was crumbling before my eyes. So since that happened, it was like a chain that was broken, because whenever you have a strong attachment to something and it's not moving the direction you want it to, that attachment becomes a chain to an idea that you want to happen that's not going to happen. So it's painful. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid, but when you do that, you're able to free yourself from all of the delusions and all of the, I guess, misplaced expectations around an outcome that you're not going to get. And so it's a very freeing experience.
So I want to go on this journey with you in my mind. So you pack up all your stuff, you hop on a plane, you get there. Like, what's going through your mind on the plane? How long were you there? And what was kind of the biggest epiphany that you had on that journey?
There's phases of it, right? We have the going to the jungle, going to India, going to China, Tibet, and all that. So if we start with the first phase, I think the first phase was it was an escape. Because everything in my life in the city and everything that I was doing in the conventional, like making it and being successful, it wasn't bringing me any happiness. Mm-hmm. It was just another Band-Aid for the feeling of inadequacy. Because I was just trying to prove that I'm worthy of something. And that was the baseline driver, because I'm a biracial kid. My dad was an African-American man. He was born in 1934. So the whole idea of being successful in the world was really drilled into my head. Son, you got to go to college. You got to get a really good job. You got to wear a suit to work every day. You got to do all these things. And I did that aggressively. And I had a pretty good run at it. But internally, it's just like, wait a minute, I'm living his dream. I'm doing what he wanted me to do because he didn't get the chance to do it. Is this what I really want? Does this make me feel alive? Is this true to me? And the answer was no. Because every superficial thing that I did, every promotion, every deal that I closed, all this kind of stuff, it was just kind of like a little crack hit of dopamine, I guess. The high lasts for like 5 minutes, then you're back down chasing the next thing. And so leaving that all behind and going back to nature it was really an escape. I was, all right, I need to get away from this bad memory, these bad feelings, and get into a place where I can just kind of be in myself, because all of my attention is outward. You know this in entrepreneurship. If you're trying to run companies, you're trying to manage a family, like how much time do you have to actually be in yourself, right? You don't. Time that someone's knocking on your door, or your phone's ringing, or the kid wants something. So you have very limited time or space to devote any of your attention to you. And if you're going through things with like PTSD or substance abuse, or your life is kind of falling apart, that is really essential to healing. Is really tuning in with yourself, not with what everybody else is expecting of you, or what everyone else tells you should want, but how do you actually feel about things? And so that the first phase of it was running away, getting away from the city life, getting away from all of my attachments, all of the things that were demanding my attention, all of these things that brought me this false sense of validation, and really getting in touch with simplicity. As I remember, this is a profound quote a guy told me. I was in the Navy having alcohol issues, and I had to go to an AA meeting in Virginia Beach back in like 2003. This old homeless guy. He said, happiness is a simple concept, but we always try to find it through complicated things, and we never do. And we wonder why. And that kind of stuck in my head for years after that. And so simplifying things was really the whole thing that was driving me, I guess, to do this. So getting on the plane, getting there, landing in, this small town in the Philippines, not knowing the language, not really knowing a lot of people, finding a place to set up, doing all that. It was just an adventure for me. I looked at it like a field op. Like I was having a great time. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And was there any point on that trip where you're like, what the heck am I doing?
Oh yeah, all the time.
I knew that answer. I just want to hear you say it. So.
Yeah. Because whenever you're running away from something, you're not looking, like if you're being chased by a grizzly bear, you're not looking necessarily where to go. You just get away from this thing, right? Right. So if I might climb up a tree to get away from the grizzly bear, not realizing there's a bunch of beehives there, right? So in terms of analogy, whenever you're running away from something, anything is better than what you're running away from, but you don't have a clear vision and plan of where you're actually going. You're not going to stop and like look at a map and say, oh, while the bear's chasing me, I can go this way. You're not doing that. You're just running. So there's a lot of points where I was running into complications, like trying to learn how to speak the local language, trying to deal with the locals in a new culture, times where you just have to totally adjust from being this corporate guy that runs things that's by the book to dealing with people who, live in bamboo huts out in the jungle, are very, very kind-hearted and very simple, and have a different way of looking at life and doing things. So there's plenty of points I was doing that, but I never wanted to go back though. The idea of like, I think I'll just stop this and get on a plane and go back and sit in an office. Like I'd rather die than do that. That's how I was kind of feeling at that time. So it was just pushing me forward, and, learning how to build your own house, learning how to set up a farm, learning how to fish, how to hunt. All these skills I had them as a kid, but they got buried in, living life and doing this corporate stuff. I had to kind of relearn a lot of that stuff. So it was fun, but it definitely, I had those moments more than once, sometimes once a day, but going back wasn't an option for me.
And what stood out the most to you, like these ancient healing systems, right? Like you said, these people like living in bamboo huts, right? Their life is so simple. But they're all pretty healthy. People, like mentally, physically. These ancient healing systems, what was your big takeaway from that, and what helped you the most?
I would say with that part of the journey in the Philippines, it was appreciating simplicity. And, whenever you unplug from an environment where you're constantly full of mental stimulation, you have implanted desires of things you don't really want, but the things that people want you to want because they profit off of it. Like say, for example, you're driving down the road and you're not really hungry, but you see this giant advertisement for a hamburger and a Coke, and all of a sudden you want it. Is your body actually hungry, or is it just your mind wanting to consume stimulation? So removing myself from all of that and just coming into presence with nature where you don't have a lot of outside stimulus, it allows you to simplify your desires, right? And one thing I figured out there was, if we look at the concept of happiness, what do we define that as? A lot of us say, oh, I want to be happy, and we're chasing this feeling, but we don't really know what that is. If I ask okay, what's happiness? It's a feeling. Okay, and like, how do we elaborate on that? But the biggest, I guess, realization I had out there was happiness is the sum of your preferences, expectations, and desires weighed against your reality. If those things match, then you feel the feeling of happiness. When they don't, then you don't feel a feeling of happiness. You have a deep sense of dissatisfaction or suffering or misery or whatever it is. So by simplifying your desires, it allows you a faster path to happiness, because you're not wanting things that you probably don't really even want. They've just been implanted into your mind, or you've been conditioned to want them. And when you don't get them, you have this feeling that, okay, maybe I'm inadequate, maybe I'm not enough, maybe life is really bad. But is it? If people can sit around a campfire eating fresh fish that they caught for the day, having a great time, versus, you're back in America and everyone's in separate rooms, they don't talk to each other and has their face in a screen.
Yeah.
I mean, who's really right in that situation? Who's winning in that one, right? That was things I started to question a lot. But I guess from that journey, that aspect of my journey in the Philippines, it's simplifying happiness. If you understand that happiness is simply the sum of your expectations, your preferences, and your desires weighed against your reality, if you have excessive expectations, desires, and preferences that can't be met, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah, and one of my favorite movies is The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, and the pursuit part is what we're guaranteed in life. Like, we're not guaranteed to be happy. Happy is like Fugazi. It doesn't exist. It's a little Fugazi, right? Am I happy? Am I not? But contentment, fulfillment, those are the things like you can pursue and achieve and feel some sort of inner peace with it. But happy is like waves in the ocean. You're up and down and
up and down, up and down.
Yeah, up and down. And so in the notes, I saw this about the barefoot monk. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Okay, yeah. So I'd been in the Philippines and living in the jungle. I was there for about 9 to 10 months. And I was starting to unpack a lot of things. So it's a lot better than I was, but there were still some old habits that were dying hard. I still like to go, because the locals there, they like to drink. And so having a few drinks with them and hanging out with them and doing that kind of stuff. And I started to really unpack things, but I realized that this is only getting me to a certain level, right? Because there's still a lot of internal work that I don't really know how to do, and I need a practice for this. So it was August of 2017. I decided, I'm going to go to India because I want to learn yoga, because I read this study and I kind of practiced on my own a bit. And I took a few classes when I was in the city, but the yoga that is taught commercially is not really the real thing. Mm-hmm. It's a watered down, commercialized version of a practice where you can kind of derive the benefits without the discipline. Mm-hmm. And so it creates a lot of distorted thinking. And you look at modern New Age spirituality, a lot of it is a lot of contradicting ideas, mm-hmm. where you have people that have massive, giant egos around their knowledge of a practice that is designed to destroy the ego.
Okay. Yeah.
And this happens worldwide, right? So going into the environments of India, I was in the lower Himalayas and the foothills of the Uttarakhand province in Rishikesh, which is the city where yoga was born. And I remember I showed up there. India is an overwhelming experience if you haven't been. Like, the concept of personal space doesn't exist there because it's so overpopulated.
Yeah.
So the idea that people respect boundaries is not really the same as we have in America, right? People will get, hey, how are you? And they'll get right up in your face, almost as if they're going to kiss you. Yeah. And they touch you. And I mean, there was a couple times there was
the close talk. I'm like, and I keep taking a step back. There's a guy in my gym that's like that. Super nice guy. It's
like, hold on a second, man. Whoa.
Are you not picking up on the fact? Like, every time you take a step, I'm like backing up. So I'm a personal space guy.
Yeah, we all are. I mean, in our Western culture, it's definitely a thing. But there, it's not the same. People are, and when they like you, they treat you almost like family, but to the point where you haven't given them that permission yet. So they really get into your business and into your space. Like, I remember one time I was staying at this homestay, And then I left to go out to eat, and I came back, and the guy was sitting in my room looking through my stuff. I'm like, what are you doing, man? He's like, oh, this is very, very nice. Where'd you get this at? How much did you pay for it? My friend has a shop. We can get it cheaper. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Right? And so a lot of me was hanging on to everything I knew in Western culture, because that's where I came from, right? I'd unpacked a lot, and I deprogrammed a lot, but India was an entire deprogramming and reprogramming a whole different operating system. So I remember being in Rishikesh. It was one day, it was probably around maybe 100 plus degrees. It was super hot. And I was down by the river. You know, there's people everywhere. There's cows walking around. There's temples. It's very, there's a lot of sensual stimulation in India. Like it's on full blast everywhere.
Yeah.
And I sat down by the river, and there was this guy who had a dhoti on. He had this thing on his head, and he was wearing orange robes. And he came up to me, as like, my friends, what are you looking for? And I thought he was trying to sell me some hash or something. I'm like, oh, I'm good, man. I'm trying to stay away from it. Like, no. He said, what are you looking for in you? And he's pointing at me. He's like, why are you here? And I was like, I want to learn yoga. He's like, what school are you going to? Because in Rishikesh, there's a lot of different places where you can pay, a couple $1,000 and you get a yoga teacher certification that's 200 hours where you can go teach in a studio and all that. And I'd visited a few of those, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. Because they teach, like, I come from a martial arts background. If you wanted to be a teacher in martial arts, you have to practice for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to work your way out through the belts, and then you can become a teacher. But with the new age spirituality and how yoga has been commercialized, you can show up with no experience at all, go through a 2-month course, and then they give you a certificate now that you're a yoga teacher, when you haven't really mastered the practice, right? So I wasn't really into that. So I told him, I was looking for a yoga teaching school, and I just really haven't found what I'm looking for. He's like, okay, I'm your teacher from now on. You're going to come with me. I was like, I don't know about this, man. Like, what are we going to do? He's like, I'm your teacher. You're going to come with me. So he took me to this place called the Parmat Nikitan Ashram. It's one of the most famous ashrams in Rishikesh. And then we were sitting in this courtyard, and then he just said, he didn't really speak good English. English was very broken. It was like half Hindi and half English, but I kind of understood him. And he started taking me through these practices and these postures. And I started wanting to intellectualize everything and ask a ton of questions. He's like, no think, just do, just do. Mm-hmm. That's what he would say, no think, just do. So I started doing these practices, and I started to come to understand that as you do the practice, the physical practice of yoga, the design and intention of it is to bring your mind into your body, because it's a meditative practice. Mm-hmm. Like when we see with yoga, with the really beautiful women that are wearing the tight pants and contorting their bodies everywhere, that practice is called asana, which is the third limb of yoga. The asana is designed to loosen and prepare your body for meditation so your mind can be still. Because if you sit down and you try to meditate without any preparation, your mind is going to run everywhere. If you've tried it yourself, you probably could attest to this.
I was like, I'm terrible at meditation. It's like, oh, a fly, oh, a bird.
Oh, I got to check my email. Yeah. Oh, why did this guy say this to me? What did this person write there? What am I going to make for dinner? Yeah. All these thoughts are just going to bombard your head, that by the time you're sitting there for 5 minutes, you have a million things you want to do, and you got to get out of there and do them, right? So the practice of asana is designed to bring your mind into your body through each posture that you do. And by the time you do the full set and you end up in Padmasana, or the lotus position, it brings you into a space where you can fully meditate. Because all of those thoughts, all of those desires, all those emotions, you get a sense of release in the nervous system. And when you're fully present in yourself, then all of those things aren't going to hamper you down with these thoughts pulling you everywhere. They call it monkey mind. Your mind's jumping from branch to branch. But after you do asana, then you're still. So I remember I did this, and it was the first time I was able to really sit still in a long time, where I'm not thinking about anything. Because when you're addicted to thinking about things, not thinking of anything is a scary thought, because you always got to be on top of things, right? You got a business to run. You got to think about your kids, your wife, your family, all these things. And then I got to this space where I found a bit of stillness, and then the emotions started to come up. And he saw it too. And I started to have a panic attack, or I started to visibly, my heart started beating. I started breathing heavy. He told me, just breathe through it, be present, be still. Mind is still. That's what he would try to say to me when this is going on. And that's when I started to really be able to unpack things. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have to be afraid of these emotions. I can just experience them. Like it's not a death sentence. Like, sure, it's uncomfortable, right? but it's just an emotion. It's not as scary as I thought it was.
Yeah.
And so after that first time, that's when I decided, all right, this is what I'm looking for. And so he was a Naga sadhu. A sadhu is like a renunciate. The culture in India, sometimes people do that. They decide to renounce their whole worldly life and become a wandering monk. So they give up their possessions, their property, everything. And the government sanctions this. They give them like a license to do it. And they basically live a life where they go between different ashrams, they meditate, they give alms, they donate, and they live a life dedicated to the practice, where this guy's fully in. Funny thing, later on, I found out he used to be an investment banker for Citibank in India. So he was a smart guy. He had a lot of things that happened. He decided to leave the world behind. So that's something we had in common. So over the course of the next 3 months, that was my guru. That was my teacher. I was with him every single day. And the more I spent with him, the deeper he took me. There was times that he's like, you're no wearing shoes. Like, I'm not wearing shoes 12 years, no shoes. And so everywhere we went, I wasn't allowed to wear shoes. And we'd go out trekking in the jungles of the Himalayas, and he would tell me what different plants were used for medicinal uses. I'd have to bathe in the freezing cold waters of the Ganges River out in the mountains. I'd have to, whenever we sat down, I'd have to sit with him in Padmasana, the full lotus position, which is super uncomfortable if you're not used to it. And every time I'd want to get out, it's like, mind is still, mind is still, mind is still. And so over the course of that 3 months, through his broken English and I guess however he taught me was effective, I came to realize that the issues are in our tissues. Everything that we have emotionally happen in our nervous system manifests in the body somewhere. And the more that you can get in touch with your body, the more you can start to understand where your emotions are physically. We can fight those feelings of discomfort to run away and understand that, okay, these are where my emotions are. This is where I'm holding my anger. This is where I'm holding my sadness. This is where I'm holding my grief. This is where I'm holding my anxiety. And I find out where those places are in my body, and I'm consciously able to breathe into those and start to relieve some of the emotional pressure, little by little. You always say, slowly, slowly.
I feel like I'm in a yoga class right now. I was just like taking a deep breath with you. I forgot we were even on a live event here. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm finding my inner self. I'm good. Okay, like I'm angry,
Yeah.
But what? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. What were
Yeah,
you
go
saying?
ahead.
I was just going to ask you, what is the biggest misconception or lie that people have about trauma and how to heal it?
So I would say, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. But I think one thing is that if you try to cover something up with something else, it doesn't go away. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times with trauma, especially as men, we want to put stuff on top of it. Mm-hmm. Oh, I had a really bad childhood and my dad wasn't there for me. So I'm going to become successful and I'm going to give my kids the best life possible to cover up the fact that I don't know what to do with these emotions with my 5-year-old broken self. Mm-hmm. Or, okay, my girlfriend or my wife left me. I'm going to go find someone better. And I'm going to put something new on top of this trauma. And so we do this thing where we stack things on top of our trauma, thinking that the new thing is just going to automatically resolve the issues, which it doesn't, right? So it's kind of like the idea of, let's say you have a broken leg. You say, all right, that's painful to look at. I don't want to deal with that. So I'm just going to make my arms really strong. And you have a really nice upper body and a big chest and big biceps and all that, but it doesn't fix your leg, right? So this is what happens with trauma. We try to stack way too many things on top of it and compensate without actually getting to the root of what it actually is and dealing with that. And I think that's where a lot of people, that's why I went wrong, because I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is you can't stack something on top of trauma and expect it to automatically resolve the thing that was originally broken. It just becomes a new distraction, a new diversion of your attention. And whenever you revisit the thing that's broken and it's still painful, and you go back to stacking things on top of it, nothing gets healed, nothing gets resolved. It's this constant hamster wheel of trying to put things on top of trauma.
Man, that's really good. Again, I'm kind of going places in my own mind listening to you, like, all right, what am I not dealing with? Oh my God, this is awesome. I love where we are so far. So out of all of this, and like you said, magic happens at rock bottom. You went on the journey. You got transformed, so to speak. And through this, Unfiltered Wisdom was born. So what is Unfiltered Wisdom, and who's it for?
It's for people that can handle uncomfortable truths. Like when I was a kid, my dad always told me something. He said, son, people don't like to be lied to, but they'll hate you for telling them an unflattering truth. And that really stuck with me because a lot of the times we lie to ourselves more than anyone else. And especially when we're traumatized, when we have things that, oh, did I freeze? Did you catch that?
You're back now. I didn't know if it was me or you, but okay. The whole screen went blank. You're good now.
Okay. So a lot of the times when we're not honest with ourselves, we keep perpetuating these lies we tell ourselves. We keep trying to think it's okay. We keep trying to think that we can do what we've always done and everything would be fine. We keep trying to delude ourselves into this path that we want things to go, and it's actually not going there. So Unfiltered Wisdom is an idea of just telling people raw and honest truths. And if you don't like it and you get triggered by it, then that's something that reminds you of something you have to deal with. Yeah. And this is what happened to me. I was told a lot of raw and honest truths, and it made me realize that the more we can have honest conversations with other people and with ourselves, the faster we can resolve things. But a lot of us don't want to do that because it's uncomfortable. And we don't want to admit to ourselves that we have these kind of thoughts or these kind of feelings or these kind of things that we don't know what to do with. So Unfiltered Wisdom is basically taking things that I've learned on my journey in these different places, translating it down into modern day wisdom that people can understand, and telling them, this is what you can observe. This is a fact. This is an observable fact. Your emotions around this fact are not going to change it. Now, the only thing that you can change is your emotions. Now, how do you do that? You have to deal with the thing that's triggering you, or deal with the thing that you don't want to face. And it's very difficult, and it can be very uncomfortable, but that's the only path to get through things. You have to face the discomfort to understand that this is an actual problem. This is something that I'm thinking, I'm feeling, that I have inside of me that I need to get rid of and deal with. So that was the whole kind of idea behind it. And I didn't really think much of it at first, but people started reaching out to me, and then a lot of my family members and old friends and new people. So I just kind of ran with it a bit.
And I was just, again, the truth, if it bothers you, it's usually spot on.
It's usually true.
It's usually spot on. Like, yeah, that didn't sit well with me. Yeah, it's because it's the truth. But what I've seen with, addiction, and addiction doesn't even need to be, drugs or alcohol. It could be success or competition or achievement, and it's not even about the money. But and I even noticed this in me. Like, I have to compete, right? I've sold 3 companies. I tried retirement for 2 weeks, and almost went crazy. So but what is causing people to do that? Like you said, like, hey, my dad wasn't there for me when I was a kid. I'm going to show everybody I'm something, and give my kids everything I didn't have. And what I've, coached and advised and mentored some people through that process, it's really, you put yourself through pain because you're in control. That puts you in control of the throttle, right? People that have a drinking problem, they're causing the pain and damage to themselves, but at least they're in control, right? They can't go back and fix what happened to them with their dad, or they can't go back and fix whatever problem they're trying to cover up. And they're in pain from that, but they want to be in just a little bit more, because then they feel like they're in control. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you can go back and fix those issues, right? Because most of them it's internal. Because like, one thing we have to face is we're probably not going to get the apology we think we deserve. We're probably not. Yeah. I mean, let's just be honest about it. My dad was a boxer, and growing up in that kind of household, I had the shit beat out of me on a regular basis as a kid. He broke 3 of my ribs. He broke my jaw once. I took a lot of beatings as a kid, and I wanted my dad to apologize. And he was late in the 70s before he died. And he said, I had to make you a man. Suck it up, boy. And that was it. And I was really expecting like him to, give me a hug and tell me it was going to be better. But the things that we resolve are in us because they're our own feelings. Regardless of the person that's there, if you feel a sense of hurt, if you feel a sense of anger, if you feel a sense of sadness, regardless of who's involved, that feeling is still in you. And you have all full control to relieve that or to resolve that by understanding that feeling, by processing it, by coming to grips with it, and by letting it go. So you can go back and fix those things if you have the courage to sit with those feelings. But a lot of times we don't. And we don't know how, right? Because the difference I notice between men and women are very easy to talk about their emotions. And they can bond with each other by just opening up and kind of venting to each other. But as men, we don't typically do that. And we keep things on our own. So it's kind of a foreign territory, right? And to sit there and try to like maybe open up to a therapist or somebody else that have the stigma of trying to seek help, and we don't really like to do it. So we're trying to navigate a foreign territory.
Right.
It's this wild wilderness of emotions that we have no idea where to go or what to do. So rather than step in there and potentially get lost or, you know, break our ankle or whatever, we just say, all right, I'll stick with the booze instead. That's easier. I know this. Right. I can navigate this territory. I can open this bottle. I can drink it. I can feel good. You know, maybe I'll lash out. Maybe something will happen. Then I'll do damage control later and apologize and go about my business. But if we're willing to open up those things within ourselves and be honest with ourselves, say, you know what, I feel sad about this. I need to do something about it. I need to be honest with it. I need to feel this feeling and do something with it. Then we can totally resolve those things. But a lot of us don't want to do that. And a lot of us don't know how.
Yeah, I think the don't know how is more often than the don't want to, right? Like you said, like we don't know how. It's a foreign language for us. When I was kicking off the show, I talked a little bit about our House of Bricks veteran initiative. I don't know if you've seen this on social media, but the What the Truck thing that we did. And who knows where that is going to go. Sky's the limit from my perspective. If there's a veteran, or really anyone, entrepreneur, veteran, father, even mothers listening today that are in a dark place, if you had one thing that you could say to them, and I know like everyone's in a dark place for a different reason, so there's probably not one candid phrase, but something that may resonate with someone that's listening in a dark place right now.
Sometimes the only way that you can find them and see the light is from a place of darkness. Like the full moon, right? It's not going to look as majestic if it was daytime. If you're in pitch black night and you see a bright full moon, that's what makes it beautiful. So if you're in that dark place, you have an opportunity to abandon everything you know and seek beauty and chase the light. And when you're put in a position where you absolutely have to, that's when you absolutely can. So if you feel like things are not going your way, if you feel like you're overwhelmed, if you feel like everything you're doing is not working, then you have no choice but to change what you're doing and seek a different path. And when you do that and you honestly fully commit 100%, as if your life depended on it, then you're usually going to come out on top. So I know it's difficult. I mean, I've been in dark places myself between, you know, alcohol addictions, you know, suicide attempts, all this other kind of stuff. And if you're there and you're at a place where you're still alive, you still have people that love you, you still have family, you still have opportunities, you still have things that people want and people value, then a lot of it is just, it's the things in your own mind and your own emotions that are coming up into your thought processes that you don't really know how to cope with and deal with. And since they exist in you, you have full control over those things. And they're things that are in you that you can deal with if you have the courage to learn how and sit through the discomfort of actually doing. And so if you need that courage and you need discomfort, then you have to find a reason. Maybe it's for your kids, maybe it's for yourself, maybe it's for your future. But if you find that reason why and you go fully and you go all the way in, you can totally change your life for the better. Sorry, Adam, I think you muted yourself. Can't hear you. Okay, there you go.
There we go. Somehow my microphone switched. Okay, we're good. What I was going to say, or was saying, no one could hear me, is the most important part of what you said, and I think people need to hear today, is really the only sustainable change or purpose for change is to do it for yourself. If you do it for your kids or do it for someone else, or like that's temporary. And people don't do it for themselves because they don't value themselves at times. So it's getting that self-worth, right? Like, I am worth the effort. I'm worth the time. And we use all those other things as distractions to keep the focus off of us. So listen, it's been incredible having you on. I can't believe how fast time is going. As we wrap up here, one of the things you've said is like everything we need to know has already been written and preached. It's just a matter of applying it. If people walk away with one thing from your story, what should it be?
If you get to a point where you are at a place where you have to make a choice and you decide to go all in, you can win. But you have to go all in. It's like your last move. If you go all in on that and you do it for yourself because you want a better life, you want to be in a better place, you want to feel differently, you want to experience different things, and you go all in on that, you can come out on top. But the only thing is, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult, and you're going to have to put yourself in new places, new environments, around new people. You're going to have to do new things to abandon what you know. And if you're able to do that and change, maybe you don't have to abandon what you know fully, but if you change the way that you're doing things and approaching things with radical action, as if your life depends on it, then you can come out on top. You just have to have the courage and the guts to do it, and the grit to endure the discomfort associated with that.
Yeah. You've got me fired up, man. I'm going to get off this Zoom call and go run a couple miles, just get after it. And I used to practice a lot of yoga. I did Bikram, by the way. Don't go watch his Netflix documentary. It's a little wild, but that was one practice. I've done a lot of vinyasa, but that's more like exercise based. Like you said, the purpose of yoga is not even the physical part. It's to get you ready where you can actually focus. But I want to thank you. This has been incredible for all of our listeners, House of Bricks community, the veterans that are joining us today. If anyone wants to learn more about you, obviously they can check you out on LinkedIn. And is your website up yet, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unfilteredwisdom.com. So it's unfiltered wisdom. There's a dash in it. I can send you guys the link. Make sure you have it.
We have the link. I'll have my team drop it in the chat there. But yeah, it's unfiltered-wisdom.com.
Yeah.
And Rob, again, thank you for joining the House of Bricks, for being transparent with your story. I always say our story's not about us. It's how we can impact other people. And I know there's people listening today that could be impacted by this. So if you're out there, you're listening, you're in a valley, reach out. We've all been there, and we want to be here and be on the same frequency and climb and build together. So thanks again. We'll see everyone next time on the House of Bricks Live, brick by brick. And we're also honoring veterans, vet by vet.